everyone, and welcome to this week's Naked Truth. Trisha Hershberger here. For those of you who haven't seen the Naked Truth before, this is a vlog where we vlog en natural, in our most natural state. We talk about vulnerable topics in a vulnerable state. They're not always vulnerable, sometimes they're fun. But anyway, it's not a sexy thing. It's about being you, and that just you with no makeup and no hairstyle, fresh out of the shower is enough. So, yeah, I'm Trisha Hershberger, and today I'm going to talk about my labor and delivery story. I'm going to try to keep this as ungross as possible, but I am going to tell you the stuff that I was certainly surprised by, because I did a lot of research into what was going to happen, and there were still things that I was like, nobody told me that. So, yeah, that's the stuff that I'm going to talk about. But before I jump into that, I want to thank our Naked Army vloggers from last week. There were so many, because we talked about SourceFed ending, which I'm still heartbroken over, but a lot of you guys are as well, and it was nice to share that. And there were so many vlogs that I didn't get a chance to watch all of them yet, but I will. So if I haven't watched yours yet, stay tuned. That's Victoria, Josiah, Jeff, Jack, Malcolm, Colin, Colin, Brittany, Catherine, Micah, Kavaja, Prescott and Kristen, Nathan, James, Jacob, Jab, Jenny, and Brody. So thank you guys for all of your kind words and thoughts about SourceFed ending. If you want to check those out, the people who wanted me to link them are linked in the description below. Okay, so today, the real stuff. Yeah, giving birth is no joke, guys. Okay, so here's my story. So, everything got finished on the house, and we finished the nursery, and, we were, like, Skyping with my parents at night to be like, here, look at what the nursery looks like. Isn't it awesome? And we were all joking, okay, you're allowed to come now, little guy. Ha 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 ha. He listened. So, at 3 a.m. the next morning, my water broke, which isn't how they tell you it's going to happen. P.S. Everyone tells you, don't worry, it's not like in the movies. Your water doesn't just break. You'll be in labor for a while before that, and when you transition from early to active labor, that's when your water's going to break. That's not how it happened with me. So it's the middle of the night, and I had just gotten up to go to the bathroom for the millionth time, because when you're pregnant, that's how that works. And I laid back down in bed, and I felt like I was still going, and I was like, what is happening? So I jumped up and went to the bathroom, and by the time I got to the bathroom, my pajama pants were full on soaked through. Like, I don't think a human can even pee that much. My bathroom is not that far. And I sat down, and it was like someone took a super soaker gun and was shooting it at full speed out of my body. Like, it was the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me, and bodies are weird. I will reiterate that bodies are weird. So I'm laughing at this point because it's so ridiculous, and it just won't stop. So it's like gushing and gushing and gushing and gushing, and I'm like, how am I gonna, like, I have to get up and wake Nate up and be like, hey, it's time to go, but I can't stand up because it just keeps coming. And every time I tried to, like, you know, like, wad a bunch of toilet paper to, like, hold me over just to get out of the bathroom enough to be like, hey, get up, we're going, it would just gush right through. It was crazy. It's the most absurd thing I've ever seen, and it wouldn't stop. So anyway, I finally get to the point where I can get a pair of pants on, and Nate's, like, throwing things in the car, and we get in the car and we drive down there, and I had these, like, waterproof things that I put on the car seat. And then I get to the hospital, and Nate helps me out of the car, and the gushing, which had turned to trickling for the car drive, turned back into gushing once we got to the hospital. So by the time I entered the hospital, I was full on, looked like I had made a mess all over myself, again, in my new pants. And it was just ridiculous. And at this point, I wasn't really feeling any labor pains, so I was like, wow, maybe I'm one of those people that, like, just has a really high pain tolerance. No, that was not the case. So I check in to my hospital room, and thank you to the lovely gentleman who was working security who checked me in, Gonzo on Twitch. It was hilarious because I came in and I'm, like, gushing fluid, and I hear Miss Hershberger, and I was like, what is happening? It's like 4 o'clock in the morning at this point. So that was hilarious. But anyway, I check into my room, and I get there, and they're like, okay, we're going to do an internal exam. This is what it's called, an internal exam, to see how far dilated you are. And I'm thinking, my water broke. I'm 5 to 6 centimeters dilated. I'm halfway there. Again, that's what they tell you is going to happen. That is not what actually happened to me. So they do an internal exam, which, P.S., is not just them, like, looking in there and being like, okay, you're this. No, it's way more complicated than that, and I'm gonna keep the TMI stuff, but it's not fun. So the lovely nurse who did that for me, I believe her name was Jamie, and she was really cool. She was like, hey, so you're 1.5 centimeters dilated. At which point I think I looked at her and said, oh shit, that's not good. Because that's not what you want to hear when your water's broken. Just so you guys know, when your water breaks, you have 24 hours to get that baby out before you and the baby are at risk of infection. So only being 1.5 centimeters out of like the full 10 centimeters that you want to be dilated, not good. So they let Nate and I walk around the hospital floor for a few hours, seeing if maybe that would get labor going. So basically what had happened is they called it rupturing. I had ruptured. My water had broken before I was really in labor. So we walked around for a couple hours to try to get labor started. And at that point, after the couple hours of walking, they were like, so you're 2 centimeters dilated. Ugh. And I was like, all right, well, that's obviously not working. So they needed to induce me. And I got Pitocin to speed things up, and what that does is it kicks your body into gear. It's a hormone that, is a natural, it's a synthetic version of a natural hormone that's released in your body when you go into labor. So they gave me that so my body would be like, hey, we're in labor now, which it did promptly. And usually when they do that, it's a little bit more intense because it's speeding things up. So it took me 0 to 60 real fast. So after about 2.5 hours of me like on the birthing ball, which is like big exercise balls and like peanut shaped balls, and me like doing all the stuff I learned in birthing class of like the breathing techniques and the focusing techniques and getting in different positions to make it not hurt so bad. After 2.5 hours, I was like, I'll take that epidural whenever you're ready. So then the anesthesiologist came in and is going to give me the epidural, and I'm laughing because again, you hear you have the epidural and it's so much better. Let me just tell you, in all honesty, that epidural hurt more than anything I've ever had done to me in my life. Ever. And I know it's a huge needle, and fortunately they didn't let me see it. They had me roll over before it was within sight. But Nate was sitting across from me, and he could see it. And guys, if you were ever in the room when this is happening, keep that poker face, okay? Keep that poker face strong, because Nate did a really good job of trying to keep that poker face, but I know him. And I could kind of see it wash over his face for a second, where he was like, looking at me, and then kind of went, back to me. And I was like, oh no, man. But to be fair, my epidural was very painful because I flinched, I believe, when they first put in the local anesthetic before they put in the actual epidural. And so I wasn't as numb as I should have been, is what we think happened. It all happened very fast, and I was in a lot of pain, so I don't really know. But yeah, so I've heard from other people that they loved the epidural. It was their favorite part. They were smiling after. That was not the case for me. It was incredibly painful. And then afterwards, I had a reaction to the anesthesia and got the shakes really bad. And this is apparently something normal that happens. I did not know that this is something normal that can happen, so that was crazy. And poor Nate was terrified because I was shaking like I was going into hypothermic shock, is what he kept saying. But yeah, it wasn't because I was cold. I kept thinking, oh, it's because I'm nervous. I'm so embarrassed. I should be handling this better than that. But it was actually just a reaction I had to the medicine. And then my epidural didn't fully numb me everywhere. So I was fine for like a few hours, and I was like, I'm starting to feel it over here. Oh wait, I'm really feeling it. Oh dear Lord, give me some more meds. So then they had to come in and give me more, and then I got the shakes again. And at that point I was like 5 to 6 centimeters dilated. Or maybe it was a little bit more than that. Anyway, fast forward another few hours, which thank God there was a DVD player in our hospital room, because I put on, this is so silly, I put on the movie musical Jekyll and Hyde starring David Hasselhoff because it makes me laugh hysterically, and I heard that you should laugh through labor, so that's going to be a hilarious story to tell Logan when he's older, that's what we watched in the hospital room while he was coming out. But I think the nurse got that I thought it was so funny because it was like awful and hilarious and awesome at the same time, but the anesthesiologist just thought I was the weirdest person in the universe, which is fine. I digress. So fast forward a few hours, and I can feel a lot of pain again. I'm like dying. So the anesthesiologist comes in and gives me even more. And then they're like, okay, great. You're 10 centimeters dilated. It's ready. It's time to go. It's time to push. We're going to have you start pushing to see if your pushes are effective before we bring in the doctor. And they said because I was so numb, my pushes were not at that moment effective. So they had to wait until some of the anesthesia wore off for my pushes to be more effective. So we waited for that. And about a half hour later, my pushes were good to go. And they brought in the doctor. And, okay, so it was hilarious. They like collapsed the bottom half of the table, put my feet up in the stirrups, and we're like ready to go. And I'm feeling like, yeah, we're totally going to do this. And they're like, okay, push like you're pooping. Because that's honestly how they tell you to do it. Again, sorry if that's TMI, but that's how they tell you to do it. So I'm like holding my legs up by my chest, and Nate's like holding my head up, and like I'm in the position ready to go, breathing through it, pushing like I'm pooping. And they say that all women poop when they deliver their babies. I'll be perfectly honest. If I pooped, I don't know it. I don't know if I did because they never told me, and I don't think I did. I had a birthing class teacher at some point in my pregnancy say, everybody poops, so get over yourself. I think it's hilarious. If I pooped, awesome. If I didn't poop, even better. Cool. That's a real thing that some people don't know about giving birth. So anyway, I'm pushing, right? And I didn't see this because I was so focused on pushing, but Nate could see on the monitor, which was monitoring my vitals and the little guy's vitals, Logan's vitals, that every time I pushed, Logan's heart rate was dropping. And so I went through a couple series of pushes. They have you push like for 10 seconds and then take a deep breath, and then push for 10 seconds and take a deep breath, and push for 10 seconds and take a deep breath, and then you pause until the next contraction, and then you do that again. So I did a couple sets of that, and I was like exhausted because of course I'm pushing as hard as I can because I want to meet my baby. And Nate is seeing now Logan's vitals every time I push go all the way to his heart rate going all the way down to 0. And then when I'm done pushing it skyrocket back up to higher than a healthy level. And he could see the one nurse's face was starting to be a little panicked. And my doctor was so even-keeled. She was awesome. And she was just like, you know, if mama let me, I'm going to take a kiwi and help get this little guy out of here. And I was like, kiwi, sure, sounds cute and amazing and awesome. And Nate saw them bring in a box that said kiwi, which was actually the vacuum. But I am happy that she didn't use that word in that room. She had a couple other really cute names for it, and that was awesome. But anyway, so at this point, things were getting really scary. Nate was terrified because he said I looked like I was at death's door, and he was watching Logan's heart rate go to 0, like I was saying. And I guess at this point, the doctors realized, or maybe they already knew, the doctor and the nurses, that the cord was wrapped around his neck, and that's why this was happening. So my doctor, like, kicked the stool out from under her and, like, stood up and used all of her muscle to, like, pull with the vacuum to get him out. And the nurses were, like, on top of me, like, pushing on my belly to get him out. So this whole thing was rushed. It's not like my body was like naturally going into labor and naturally allowing me to push at my own pace and all this stuff that you kind of hope for. That definitely didn't happen. It was like a get him out now, this is a scary situation kind of moment. So a bunch more pushes. I started to realize something was wrong when they were still telling me to push in between contractions. I didn't get that moment of rest. And then they gave Nate an oxygen mask and had him put the oxygen mask on me in between pushes. And, you know, I knew enough to know, like, something's not okay. But anyway, I pushed and pushed and pushed, and the doctor pulled and pulled and pulled, and eventually Logan's head and shoulders came out. And at that point, they cut the cord and unwrapped it around his neck and had me get the rest of him out. And then they put him immediately right on my chest, like all gooey and gross and everything. And I was like, yeah, you're my dude. So I didn't even care about the rest of what was happening in my downstairs because I was like, this is awesome. And through all that, I did hear that I had a level 2 tear, which is gross and not fun. So I needed stitches, of course. But the good news was that Logan was okay. And that's all I cared about. Logan was fine. They put oxygen monitoring stuff on him while he was on me. So my temperature regulated his temperature. I'm crying, Nate's crying, like everyone's excited because Logan's okay. Now, in all of that, because it was kind of so rushed, I took the toll of it and I lost a lot of blood. And they had me on way crazy monitoring for the next 24 hours after. So I know it was a while when I was like, hey, we're going to the hospital. And then didn't say like, P.S. here's my kid until a while later, like days later. So I was actually in labor from the time that my water broke to the time that I had Logan was 15 hours. And then we had a lot of recovery where I was kind of with it, kind of not with it. And so that was a little bit scary. But all in all, he's okay, and that's what matters. And the other thing that I will say that's crazy about this whole thing is that in everything I prepped for with this, I prepped so much for like the labor and delivery and didn't think about after. Recovery sucks. Let me just tell you, like, maybe it's because I had a rougher go of it, but everything I read was like 7 to 10 days, you'll be great. 2 weeks if you have a C-section, 7 to 10 days if you do a vaginal birth. Let me just tell you, I am 5 weeks out now, and it's still not great. So do everything, if you are giving birth, or if you're a partner of someone who's giving birth, do everything the hospital tells you to do, and take it easy, because it's not awesome. I read so many scary articles of people who were like, I was terrified to poop after, and then other people that were like, we're talking about a lot of poop in this vlog, and then other people that were like, I looked at my downstairs and it looked like a baboon's ass, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrifying. Note, I took a mirror, checked it out, doesn't look like a baboon's ass, so don't let that terrify you. But yeah, you have to like sit gingerly for a long time, and I had this brand new cute baby, and all I wanted to do was like get up and play with him and take him for a walk, and you know, get up in the middle of the night to change him, and you really have to let your body rest, or at least I did. That was my experience of that. But that's something that I feel like no one ever talks about, the recovery. And now I'm checking with other moms, and they're like, oh yeah, it takes a really long time. And I was like, how come no one talks about this? And they said, well, because if we did, then it would scare people away from having babies. And I'm like, okay, can we not stick with the keep everybody in the dark thing? So if you're a keep everybody in the dark thing, I'm sorry that you just heard that from me. But spoiler alert, that's what really happens. And if you are someone who likes to know what they're getting into, like I am, you're welcome, because it takes a while to feel better. And every new mom that I've talked to is like, oh yeah, it takes a long time. So make best friends with the squirt bottle that they give you at the hospital. And you know, I'm just starting to feel better now, like I said, at like 5+ weeks after. And I don't feel 100%, but I certainly do feel better than I did in the beginning. So that's it. Yeah, after this whole thing, I feel like I'm a goddamn superhero. And everyone who ever did this is a goddamn superhero, and I don't know why more people don't talk about it. So thank you to my mom. Thank you to all moms who do this for us, because you're a goddamn superhero. So my question to you guys this week is, what have you done in your life that makes you feel like a gosh darn superhero? Tell me about it. It'll be inspiring and fun, and I like to hear your stories. Yeah. And that's it for this week. So this is one, I'm sorry it went on a little longer, and I'm sorry if it was a little too gross for you, but it blows my mind that a lot of the ins and outs of this people don't kind of prepare you for. And I guess it's hard to prepare people because everyone's story is different, but that was my experience, and that was the long and short of it. So thank you guys so much for watching this week's Naked Truth, and I will see you next week. Bye!